My name is Anne. At 26 years old, I just got married 6 months ago. John, my husband, is 30 years old and he works as an office worker. The story I'm about to tell happened when John unilaterally decided to have his younger sister, Molly, live in our brand new house. It's a house worth $45,000, built for the two of us, newlyweds. Ever since our engagement, John and I had been discussing the layout of the house and choosing furniture, planning to move in immediately after the wedding. When John's stuff was carried in, I was surprised by the sheer volume of it. I said to him, "John, would it fit in your space in the house? Don't you think you have a bit too much?" I was taken aback. "Molly is moving in with us? Why? We're newlyweds." I challenged John, but he responded. I protested without even a discussion. Clearly, I was not at all convinced and told him I'd call my brother. I reluctantly agreed to this. When I suggested, "Hey, can Molly use the guest room, right?" After a hectic day of unpacking, we had completed more than half of it. We were having a toast to celebrate our move when the doorbell rang. It was already past 9 p.m., so I thought of ignoring it, but John hurriedly went to the front door, unlocked it, and let the visitor in. I was shocked as I was already dressed for bed. As I hid in the kitchen, John called me out. "Hey, Anne, Molly's here?" Annoyed, I returned from the kitchen to the living room. "Welcome. Molly, what brings you here so late?"
Retorted, "Can't I come home whenever I want? Now where's my spacious room?" she said, and John led her to the guest room. Soon I heard Molly protesting, "This isn't it! You said it's a larger room, didn't you?" She flung open doors, looking around for another room on the second floor. "Here it is. This is the room for me, right, big bro?" I had a bad feeling about this, and when I went upstairs, Molly was claiming my workroom as hers.
I couldn't help raising my voice. "This is my workroom, so it can't be your room."
I couldn't help raising my voice. "This is my workroom, so it can't be your room." But I kept insisting, "No way." Then I suggested, "How about the room next to it?" His workroom is also quite large. I pointed to the room intended to be John's workroom for his hobby.
Molly, still unsatisfied, snapped, "Anne, you're quite insolent, aren't you? Not listening to the head of the household. Quite cheeky for a freeloader who depends on him for meals."
Thinking, who's the real freeloader here? I lost all my energy to argue back, thinking, who's the real freeloader here?
While I was heading back to the living room, I heard Molly asking, "Hey, big bro, do we have anything to eat? I'm hungry." I ignored her and continued with my celebration of our move in the living room.
Despite the late hour, I decided to call my brother and tell him about Molly. He picked up the phone on the first ring as if he was waiting for it. However, I could tell from his voice that he was angry. I said, "Are you mad, bro? Were you sleeping? I'm sorry. It's done. Don't you have to talk to your wife? Is it okay to leave her like this?" I began to tell him about Molly, how she had started living with us from the first day of our married life, and how she didn't like to use the guest room. I even told him that my husband and Molly had been calling me bratty and telling me to do as I was told. He was worried I was being treated like a servant by my husband and Molly, but I laughed off his concerns. "I'm your sister, right?" "Me? A servant? If they can manage it, let them try," I retorted, to which my brother laughed and said, "Good point, but call me if anything happens." We then shifted our topic to the problems between my brother and his wife. What I heard left me flabbergasted. Apparently, his wife had been seeing men from a dating site and was in an affair. He'd found out because she had accidentally sent him a message meant for her lover.
John had been suspecting her infidelity for some time, and once he got confirmation, he took her phone away and sent her back to her parents. He's planning to visit her parents' home tomorrow for a discussion.
We ended the call agreeing that both of us are in a terrible situation and deciding to catch up over the phone again soon.
While tidying up the remaining boxes, I waited for my husband and Molly to come home. They returned late at night, cheerfully drunk. As I continued unpacking instead of welcoming them, they approached me.
"Anne, Molly and I have thought of a great idea. Let's make our bedroom Molly's room. We can each sleep in our work rooms. What do you think? Good idea, right? Make sure to clear the room for Molly by tomorrow."
My husband started to panic at my question.
And Molly added, "How long will I stay?" "Until I'm satisfied. My mom's cooking is all old-fashioned and I don't like it." Plus, she's annoying at home, always nagging me to do laundry and cleaning. Here, I can do whatever I want without spending a dime. It's the best. If you don't like it, Anne, why don't you move out?
Then let's split the household expenses. I will work to cover my share. Feel free to use your salary for yourself and Molly, I told them.
For some reason, they seemed pleased with this, even though I added, "You will need to take care of your own chores." It seemed like they weren't really listening, so I made sure to leave a written note about it. The next day, I was worried about my brother and decided to visit his workplace. When I arrived at his office, he was surprised to see me.
When I asked what's up,
He said, "I'll listen to what you have to say first." So I asked him for a favor.
I explained what had happened the night before and asked him if he could hire me at his company.
He agreed, saying, "Our secretary is quitting due to her husband's relocation, so it's good timing."
Then I heard about his situation. I was so shocked that my heart almost stopped. His wife was pregnant, but there was no doubt that the child was not his. The text messages on the phone he'd taken from his child showed conversations, photos, and videos with her lover. The messages indicated that the man was trying to escape responsibility after learning about the pregnancy.
when I asked my brother if he was going to divorce his wife, he replied, "It'll be hard for the kids, but divorce is the only option." So I suggested that he involve a lawyer and have a proper discussion.
It'll be hard for the kids, but divorce is the only option. So I suggested that he involve a lawyer and have a proper discussion. And I went home.
In my room, I kept thinking of the texts and pictures of my sister-in-law's affair that my brother showed me. I couldn't get him out of my mind. The sister-in-law that I knew was a loving, family-oriented person, and I loved her for it. However, she had been betraying my brother. I felt as if I lost a dear friend, and tears welled up in my eyes. Despite all that, Molly has been knocking on my door again and again since a while ago.
Hey, I'm hungry. Can you make something?
She hollers from the other side of the door, but the shock I got was too much, and I didn't even have the energy to argue with Molly, so I left her alone. Then I got a call from my husband, who should be at work. I didn't answer because I knew what he would want to talk about. I didn't want to talk to anyone, but then I received a text message from my brother. He was asking if I could accompany him to see a lawyer on the next day. I sent an okay sticker. I must have fallen asleep. My husband's shouting woke me up.
"I'm not sick. I'm just tired of you guys." Mumbling, I fell back to sleep.
The following morning, without waking my husband, I headed to my brother's. My brother, it seemed, hadn't been able to sleep at all at home, and his eyes were bloodshot. I prepared and served breakfast for the children before taking them to kindergarten. In the car, which I was driving, the children said, "Mommy and Daddy had a fight, and Mommy left the house. Mommy was the bad one. She left us at home and went out. We cried because we were left alone, so Daddy got angry." The children thought that maybe it was better not to have their mother around because she easily got angry.
I told them, "I see. If you're lonely, call Auntie, okay?" To which they responded, "Yay! We might get lonely today."
I couldn't tell for sure, but I got the impression that they didn't seem sad, even though their mother wasn't there. After dropping the children off at kindergarten, I headed to the law office with my brother. The lawyer told us that there was ample evidence from pictures and videos on the sister-in-law's smartphone, line messages, and recorded conversations between the sister-in-law and my brother. My brother's main contention was to divorce and retain parental rights. After my brother finished his story, I had a chance to share about my situation with my husband, got some advice, and was dropped off at home by my brother. My brother was going to gather the rest of the family today and inform them about the divorce. If anything happens, give us a call. We are all going to be there. With these somewhat prophetic words, my brother left. When I entered the living room, the house was a mess. I guess they tried to make breakfast first. The kitchen area was greasy, and dishes were left on the table. I was exasperated by the sight. I hesitated to clean up the kitchen and cooking utensils that I also use when Molly appeared.
Where did you go without even making breakfast? John didn't eat anything and went to work. Isn't it unacceptable to abandon household chores as a wife?
She confronted me, to which I responded, "You know what? I'm not your maid or servant. Weren't you taught to clean up after yourself since you were a child? Ignoring her repetitive,
But you're the wife.
I headed to my room. Then my belongings were gone, and Molly's stuff had invaded my room. I returned to the living room and questioned Molly.
did you enter my room? Your stuff is in there. What's going on?
Upon asking this, she said, "Oh, I've loved your room since I first saw it. It fits my neat and cute image perfectly, don't you think? I've moved your stuff into the guest room." Hearing this, I rushed to the guest room.
When I got there, my computer and belongings had been haphazardly thrown in. I felt anger sparking. It was way beyond what I could tolerate. At that moment, I felt a strong desire for revenge. I will never forgive this girl.
I decided I would wait for my husband John to come home, show him the terrible state of our house, and then ask him, do you still want to live here with Molly? And I prepared for all the possible outcomes.
John, who seemed to have gotten a call from Molly, came home earlier than usual. Then I heard his loud footsteps approaching the guest room where I was. Seeing him come straight to the guest room, I was convinced he already knew Molly had taken over my room, and he wouldn't be on my side. When he opened the door and stepped in, looking like a madman, Molly was right beside him, a thin smile on her face.
I thought, so this is how it's going to be.
At that moment, I felt every shred of love I had for my husband disappear. He hadn't said one word to defend me. No mention of Molly being in the wrong or asking her to leave, or having her do household chores or giving me my room back.
I told him, if you're gonna let Molly live here, I'm gonna invite my brother over. He's never seen our house before. Maybe I should call him over now. Despite his usual fear of my brother in front of his sister Molly, John acted quite bold. With a confident look, he threatened me, so I told him, kick me out? Try if you can. I'll call my mother and brother and his wife and have them see the house. Thinking that I was going to beg and cry at his threat of kicking me out, he retorted. Thinking that I was going to beg and cry at his threat of kicking me out, he retorted,
This is my castle with John, you know? You have no right to call anyone here. Even if your family comes, we'll just kick them out.
In response, I picked up my phone and said, I'll call my brother then, to John and Molly.
We should live together without you and your family. We can invite our friends over and party without worrying about anything.
I was getting increasingly irritated, so I decided to call my family over right at this moment, when John and Molly were still high-spirited. They were overjoyed, thinking about the freedom they'd have without me, and their minds were filled with the thought of kicking me out. So I said, all right, but you'll regret this. I'm calling my family now. I called my brother and told my family to come as soon as they can.
My brother responded, "We've been waiting for this. We're on our way."
I figured he must have sensed that I would call him, and I was moved by his foresight. My family arrived within about 30 minutes. Molly, who had threatened to kick out my family when they first arrived, turned pale upon seeing my brother. Oh, Molly, I thought you were going to kick out my family when they arrived. At this, Molly could only shake her head at me. Seeing that, her husband John also shrunk in fear after witnessing his ally Molly become scared.
My brother has been practicing judo since he was a kid, and until he injured his knee in college, he had been a regular at national competitions. He was a big guy, standing at 6 feet and over, and his intimidating appearance was emphasized by his buzz cut. He's now a coach for a local boys' club.
My younger brother is the same, also practicing judo, and he looks just like his older brother. Molly seems to have forgotten that she saw them at the wedding ceremony, even though they are brothers, are quite memorable. Huh? We're getting kicked out? By who? Isn't it you guys who are leaving? Laughed my elder brother, to which Molly, gathering her courage, retorted.
Yeah, my brother is divorcing his useless wife. Now please leave, she demanded.
Then my younger brother retorted, What? You guys are the ones leaving, aren't you? This is Anne's house, isn't it? Built with her share of our father's inheritance, in Anne's name.
My mother went into the kitchen, tidying up as she remarked, "Oh dear, what a mess." Then she called out, Don't drag out the conversation. Get to the point already."
So the brothers obediently replied, "Okay." Then turned to me, instructing, "There's another person coming. Let the person in when they arrive." So the brothers obediently replied, Okay, then turned to me instructing, "There's another person coming. Let the person in when arrives," while gesturing for John and Molly to sit down. "We have two matters to discuss today. The first is that we need you to leave," he told my husband and Molly.
When Molly asked, "Brother, is it true that this is Anne's house?"
"Sir, you know that being the head of the household and being the owner of the house are two different things, right?"
Was the response to John, who fell silent. But Molly retorted, "I won't leave. Do you know about residency rights? I have the right, so I won't leave. If you don't want us here, you leave." Glaring at me.
You seem to have researched this thoroughly, but this isn't a rental property. You're not paying Anne any rent, are you? So the residency rights don't apply here.
When told this, it was John who began to resist this time. Just then, the doorbell rang. The guest the brothers had mentioned had probably arrived. When I opened the front door, my sister-in-law, my older brother's wife, stood there crying.
Before letting her into the house, I asked my brother, "Your wife is here with your kids. What should we do with them?" And my mother suggested she would take the kids to a room upstairs.
After showing my mother to the room, I let my sister-in-law into the house. John was surprised when he saw her face. John was telling her, acting suspiciously. At this point, it was my elder brother's turn to intervene.
"Huh? Did you forget my wife's face? This is the second matter we need to discuss."
Upon hearing that, the color drained from my husband's face. It appeared my husband was unaware that she was my brother's wife. Upon realizing this, he tried to make a run for it, but he seemed unable to move.
"Seems like my wife is pregnant with your child. Did you guys do something to get pregnant?"
My brother said, throwing down the copied evidence of the affair on the table.
"Well, what's your next move? For me, it's divorce. Nothing less."
Upon hearing this, Molly, seemingly scared of getting caught up in this mess, said, "I will pack my things and go back to my parents' house," and tried to escape upstairs.
But my younger brother promptly told Molly, "We've got a truck loaded with boxes. Start packing your things right now. I'll get the boxes," and walked out.
Molly asked, "Am I leaving today?" But when she saw my brother glaring at her, she seemed to give in.
"Well, my wife and John can sort this out. First, sign the divorce papers."
He told his wife to sign the divorce papers and handed them to her along with a pen.
Seeing that the custody section of the divorce papers was assigned to my brother instead of her, she hesitated, but he said, "That's what the kids want. Your opinion doesn't matter." She signed the divorce papers with tears streaming down her face. "Next time, take care of the child in your belly. I won't ask you for child support. In return, don't ever show your face to my kids unless they want. I won't stop them if they want to see you when they grow up."
Upon hearing this, she apologized to my brother on her knees. I didn't miss the tears welling up in my brother's eyes. I realized how hard it had been for him. Next, it was my turn.
"So Anne, what are you gonna do?"
When asked this, I said I choose divorce too. I want him out of my house as soon as possible.
Then my husband dropped to his knees and began to apologize to me.
But when my brother said, "I'm good with 2 kids. I've had surgery to make sure I can't have any more," John went speechless.
My brother handed me the blank divorce papers.
"If you want him out right away with Molly, why don't you have him sign?"
I told my husband to sign it, and he signed on it. Maybe he gave up or wanted to escape this place with Molly. I handed my husband 2 pledge documents that my lawyer had prepared for me. One was for John, and the other for Molly, to pledge they'd pay for the damage they made in the house. It will roughly be $30,000 total, I suspect, and it also states that they never enter my house again in the future. John looked at my brother and me as if he wanted to say some complaint, but when my brother glared at him, he reluctantly signed the pledge document.
My husband's shoulders slumped as he tried to go upstairs to pack his things for moving, but my brother said, "Oh, I got a marriage license for you guys when I got the divorce papers," and handed his wife the marriage license.
She immediately signed it and said, "John, sign it quickly. You've messed up my life, so you have to take responsibility. I'm having this baby. You can't escape." With her crazed look, my husband signed it, crying and saying, "Just do whatever you want."
Finally, my brother yelled, "Hey, you won't say anything unless I ask, huh? Don't you have anything to say to me?" My husband finally apologized to my brother, almost scraping his head on the floor.
After that, we all hastily packed my husband's and Molly's belongings into boxes and loaded them onto the truck that had arrived and took them to their parents' house. With that, my brief married life came to an end. 00197075.
I'm going to live alone in this big house, I thought, but my mother offered to sell her house and move in with my younger brother, 00197075.
And it seems my older brother, too, is going to sell his house and move in with his 3 children. 00107075.
My mother and my brother are going to buy this house from me with the money they got from selling their houses, telling me, why not build a new house when you get married next time? XG762N83NE019075.
But I keep saying I'm good with an apartment. Lol XG762N83NI00197075.
We got a dog that the kids had always wanted to have. Although in this house we had some bad memories, we are living a life full of laughter and happiness. 00197075. My ex-husband reportedly married my ex-sister-in-law half a year later and is living with her at his parents' house. 00197075. My ex-husband seems to be working day and night to pay for the damage of the house. Wine 7 Rose 75. And Molly treated her new sister-in-law like a maid. Sister-in-law lost her mental balance. 00197075. Molly's mother couldn't stand to see her like that and kicked Molly out of the house. 017075.